Amen. All right. Good to be back from Florida. Really good to be back from Florida. My wife. We'll send her back and I'll stay here. Look at this now. World Happiness Report. Top 10 rankings. Who's first? Finland is number 1. And I actually heard a Finn say, that's news to the Finns. Denmark, Iceland, Israel is number 4, and they've been up in the top 10 for quite a while. You don't see the United States there. We're not very happy. We haven't been happy in a while. Everybody else is kind of status quo there. Even people like Sweden, who's got all kinds of immigration issues, are number 6 according to the list. Like I said, if the Finns don't know they're number 1, I don't know what the Swedes are thinking. So well, maybe we'll send somebody over there. The watching Matthew 24, just kind of watching the wars and the rumors of wars. The Lord talked about earthquakes as well. It's been a significant week. Not huge, but pretty significant. A 6.1 in Guatemala. There has been another 6.5 and another one, I think it was, I'm trying to remember, a week or two ago in Brazil. This is a 6.5 in Brazil. These are on land, so they're not very healthy for the people there. Turkey, look at that one there, 5.0 in Turkey. This is near where the big one hit and where a bunch of 5s and 6s have hit. So they're still feeling the after effects of that big one some time ago. And then there's an interesting one. It's not huge, but it is in a very interesting place in Djibouti. So very interesting, that down there by Yemen where all that activity is going on. And then the big one this week is 7.0 in China on the border of Kyrgyzstan. And you can see all the 5s, mostly 5s, mid-level 5s around it. So that's breaking some dishes, and that's putting it lightly. So unprecedented rainfall in San Diego, and there's other reports of flooding around the earth. Anybody freeze this last week or two in this global warming state that we have? Oregon Democrats are moving to undo part of the drug decriminalization. Remember, they decriminalized basically everything, and now the Democrats are moving back. So it just shows the insanity. Remember, a double-minded man, and I would say a double-minded nation, is unstable in all of its way. 28% of U.S. adults are now religiously unaffiliated. This is the largest sector of, quote, beliefs, if you will, or unbeliefs in the nation right now. 28% of U.S. adults are now religiously unaffiliated. When Americans are asked to check a box indicating their religious affiliation, 28% now check none. This is a new Pew Research finds that the religiously unaffiliated group comprised of atheists, agnostic, and those who say their religion is nothing in particular is now the largest cohort in the U.S. They're more prevalent among American adults than Catholics or evangelical Protestants, which are at 24%. Back in 2007, nuns made up just 16% of Americans, but Pew's new survey of more than 3,300 U.S. adults show that the number has now risen dramatically, and it continues to go up. Believe in God, as described in the Bible. The religious nuns, 13%. They believe in another higher power, 56%. So just a reminder that if they say that they're nuns, they don't have any particular religion, that doesn't mean that they are not spiritual, that they are not seeking, because they are, because God has put it in our hearts and in creation to cause them to seek and reach out. They go to religious services a few times a year. Seldom or never, 90%. 90%, seldom or never. They do not know what the inside of churches look like. When asked why nuns are religious, 2/3 question religious teachings or don't believe in God. 2/3. 47% say they dislike religious organizations, and 30% say they've had bad experiences. Anybody had a bad experience in a church? And then either ask for forgiveness or seek for forgiveness or, kind of reconcile or do what the Bible says to overcome those things? Yeah. Forgive, those kinds of things. That's what we need to do. Most nuns cite disbelief or skepticism as reasons they are not religious. 43% of nuns say religion does more harm than good. 43%. So you have a third, 28%, what is it? A third of the nation saying they're nuns, and 43% of them saying we're doing harm. Okay, religion is doing harm. Remember, maybe you can think about the sermon this morning, or based on what is going on in the planet, that anti-Semitism is on the rise. Jesus said they will persecute you if they persecuted me. Remember, they persecute us because of him. If we don't feel persecuted, it's either it's not our time or we're not doing our job. One of the two. I pray that the church has basically done its job up to maybe a few decades ago. I believe the persecution will rise. The same as anti-Semitism. Those two are predicted in the scriptures. So if God, if we hang around and God doesn't take us home, we can expect this coming. Half of nuns say they are spiritual, or that spirituality is very important to them. Keep that in mind. Jordan Peterson is not a Christian. He's an interesting psychologist. He's got some really good ideas. He's the one that said that the Bible is the most transcendent, basically AI tablet we have, if you will, that there's more references made in the scriptures than any other document, anything else put together, and no human being could have done it. So he believes in a higher power. He just hasn't got there yet. Hopefully he'll get there. But a higher court in Canada has ruled that the Ontario College of Psychologists indeed has the right to sentence Peterson to re-education camp. There are no other legal avenues open to him right now. It's capitulate to the petty bureaucrats and he's using words I need to look up, addle-pated, woke mob, or lose my professional license. Congratulations, you won this round. You're not going to change his mind. He's very, very stern-minded. He does need to come over to the Christian side of things. Staying with this kind of a theme here, the number of Christians in Iraq, look at the numbers there, 1.7 million in 1991, down to 150,000 in 2020. 150,000 is held for just a few years now. I know it was that last year. And those Christians are Orthodox. They are Assyrian type Christians, basically an Eastern Orthodox kind of a Christianity. So, but anyway, that's what's happening in Iraq and in the Middle East. I don't like to show these brutal attacks. This one is not going to show a lot, but this is the kind of stuff that's happening in Nigeria. They tracked this guy down with poles and swords, and they killed him. This gentleman died. Here is a church in Istanbul. He came in and started shooting up the place. I think I showed the video of last week of the Muslims in portions of Africa being taken out of their villages and stand in the center of the village and capitulating and becoming a Muslim or denouncing Christ. It's a very, very scary time for many, many people around the world. We need to pray for the church. We need to pray for those people who are persecuted. And we need to be careful that we be so prideful and arrogant that it doesn't come our way, because it very well may be coming our way. The French newspaper Le Parisien, since October 7th, 1,000% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in France. Christianity and Judaism will go hand in hand. The Jews are not going to escape a persecution, and they are not going to escape the tribulation unless they become a believer in their Messiah, Jesus Christ. Let's catch up with the World Economic Forum, the Heritage Foundation, who it's very interesting that the World Economic Forum opened their doors to some conservative people to come in and talk to them and tell them what they thought. And a few came in and talked about the West and but here's this gentleman from the Heritage Foundation, and this is what he said, and I'd like to play the whole thing, but I'm not going to. The kind of person that should come into the next conservative administration in the White House is going to be governed by one principle, and that is destroying the grasp that the political elites and unelected technocrats have over the average person. And if I may, I will be candid and say the agenda that every single member of the administration needs to have is to compile a list of everything that has ever been proposed at the World Economic Forum and object to all of them wholesale. So I thought it was fairly brave of the World Economic Forum. They probably don't have a lot to lose, and this probably didn't go very far, but at least this gentleman and others, the Heritage Foundation and others, had a voice there. Another person who showed up at the World Economic Forum, and I've been paying attention to this guy for some time, and we've showed a couple clips here. It's been a couple, 3 years or something, but Jamie Dimon has been looking for a crash in our economy, and he still continues to do so. And he spoke there, the JP Morgan CEO, who sometimes clashed with Trump when he was in office and has urged donors to back Haley, complained that people were underestimating both the policy goals of Trump supporters and some of the achievements of the former president's turbulent term. He was kind of right about NATO. He was very right about NATO. He was kind of right about immigration. He was very right about immigration. He grew the economy quite well. That's true. Tax reform worked. So he didn't go far enough, probably. But it's interesting that the World Economic Forum is hearing this kind of stuff. Now, we've been talking a little bit about AI, kind of keep track of AI and what it's doing to our society. And it's very interesting what is happening. There's something that's cut out that the Russians are very good at. But the military has worked on this for a long, long time. It's called deceptive imagery persuasion. And they give you an image, and then they put underneath what they want you to hear, okay? And it's taken a one-up because now the AI is involved, right? And in fact, I just happened to see, when I went home, turned on Fox, somebody was talking about George Carlin, the comedian. Did you see that? That somebody has taken his voice and put it on made a recording, and now the daughter, I think the daughter is suing. It's very interesting what AI is doing to the society. But here's some self-deception. Now, some deceptive imagery persuasion. This is Ryan Macbeth, and yes, he looks weird. He looks kind of woke there, but he's not. He's in the doctor's office, so he's not a woke person. And he's not a Christian, though, of course. And he's interesting. And if you go look at this, he's in a doctor's office, and it's actually a pretty funny video. But he said, I'm in a doctor's office, and I found this so appalling that I really needed to come forward and tell you what is happening with this one post. And this is called DIP. This is deceptive imagery. There's this lady, Maris Burr, if you will. So there's this picture of Trump, and it says, if I were to run, I'd run as a Republican. They're the dumbest group of voters in the country. They believe anything on Fox News. I could lie and they'll still eat it up. I bet my numbers would be terrific. Donald Trump, People Magazine, 1998. Complete, absolute lie. Never happened. So, Trump did not disparage the GOP in 1998, according to his AP view. And so this person you can see using the Ukrainian flag, so she's trying to go that route there. And he really lets her have it. She says, you're using the Ukrainian flag to call in these people, to take note of these people who, remember, Trump wants to get us out of the Ukrainian thing in a big way. He wants to help them, but he doesn't want to give everything to them. And so she's using Ukraine to dump on Trump and all that stuff as well. But watch, Cherry Moss says to her, that's a lie. Never did Trump say this. I watched the interview. Now watch what this Maris person said. It doesn't matter. It's true in his alternative way. Now, I have no idea what that means. Because he likes to play with truth too. And I am sure, I think she said, I am sure this was his thoughts. Okay? Now, this is the argument that Maris, whoever this person is, has decided to take public. But I want to tell you that this is what the Russians are doing, and this is what China is doing. But Russia's the best at it. They're sending stuff across that looks like it's true, but it's not. And we need to be very, very cognizant of that kind of stuff that we see. At the World Economic Forum, again, they declare war on coffee, no more than 2 or 3 cups per year. And I would have been, if they would have said per day, I would have said, I think might be able to do that. But per year, according to the World Economic Forum agenda contributor Keller, the coffee that we all drink emits, watch this, between 15 and 20 tons of CO2 per ton of coffee. Every time we drink coffee, we are putting CO2 into the atmosphere. Now, where are we going to continue to go with this kind of stuff? It is really, if it wasn't so stupid, it'd be funny, or the other way around. Here's Prophecy Watchers. They say, is this a Babylon Bee article? Caffeine withdrawal is no easy road. So they're laughing, and I totally agree with them. 3 and 4 Republican registered voters said that they voted for frontrunner Trump, while roughly 2/3 of undeclared voters, independents, broke for runner-up Nikki Haley. Now this is from Newsmax. Most did not describe them as part of the Make America Great Again movement, according to CNN, compared to Iowa caucuses where nearly 50% identified as MAGA. Roughly 2/3 of voters without college degrees said they voted for Trump, while about 60% with college degrees voted for Haley. CNN also found that about 8 in 10 who voted for Trump said they strongly favored him. Conversely, roughly 40% of those who voted for Haley said they did so out of distaste for Trump. 40%. Only 1/3 said they strongly favored her. And this is, I believe, was the New Hampshire vote here. So it's going to be very interesting because people are saying that, well, the Republicans are going to generally fall for Trump. And, of course, Democrats will fall for Biden. And then the independents will make or break this. But some are saying that there's a big problem in the Republican Party. I do believe that if Haley drops out, that Trump will be the nominee. He probably will be, as of this point anyway. But having said that, there's still some races to one. We won't count her out yet. Now, this is the guy from AI, GPT, and watch what he says about, I'm trying to remember his name now, sorry, but he's one of the founders, he's the founder of GPT, and he is the one that was fired and then rehired. And now watch what he says. He was the one that came out and said, you know, we're concerned about it. Elon Musk said we're concerned about it, but we got to take a handle on it. So watch what he says, because he's saying we demystified it. We've conquered it, is basically what he said. But then later on he says something about being worried about it. So just watch what he says for a couple minutes here.
I think it's a very good sign that even at these systems' current extremely limited capability levels, you know, much worse than what we'll have this year, to say nothing of what we'll have next year, lots of people have found ways to get value out of them, and also to understand their limitations. So, you know, I think AI has been somewhat demystified because people really use it now. And that's, I think, always the best way to pull the world forward with a new technology.
The thing that I think people worry about is the ability to trust AI. You know, at what level can you say, I'm really okay with the AI doing it, you know, whether it's driving the car, writing the paper, filling out the medical form. And part of that trust, I think, always comes when you understand how it works. And one of the problems AI researchers have, AI engineers have, is figuring out why it does what it does. You know, how the neural network operates, what weights it assigns to various things. Do you think that we will get there, or is it getting so inherently complicated that we are at some level just going to have to trust the black box?
So on the first part of your question, I think humans are pretty forgiving of other humans making mistakes, but not really at all forgiving of computers making mistakes. And so people who say things like, well, you know, self-driving cars are already safer than human-driven cars, it probably has to be safer by a factor of, I would guess, like between 10 and 100 before people will accept it, maybe even more. And I think the same thing is going to happen for other AI systems, caveated by the fact that if people are accustomed to using a tool and know it may be totally wrong, that's kind of okay. I think, you know, in some sense, the hardest part is when it's right 99.999% of the time, and you let your guard down. I also think that what it means to verify or understand what's going on is going to be a little bit different than people think right now. I actually can't look in your brain and look at the 100 trillion synapses and try to understand what's happening in each one and say, okay, I really understand why he's thinking what he's thinking. You're not a black box to me. But what I can ask you to do is explain to me your reasoning. I can say, you know, you think this thing, why? And you can explain first this, then there's this conclusion, then that one, and then there's this. And I can decide if that sounds reasonable to me or not. And I think our AI systems will also be able to do the same thing. They'll be able to explain to us in natural language the steps from A to B, and we can decide whether we think those are good steps, even if we're not looking into it and saying, okay, I see each connection here, and, you know, I don't get to, like, I think we'll be able to do more to x-ray the brain of an AI than x-ray the brain of you and understand what those connections are. But at the level that you or I will have to sort of decide, do we agree with this conclusion? We'll make that determination the same way we'd ask each other, explain to me your reasoning.
Okay, so he says, Altman says, we've demystified it. So we're not afraid of it anymore, right? Then the interviewer says, well, what people are worried about, and then he answers the question, well, we need to be forgiving. And then, so now I don't know if you know this, that there's so much information now going into the program. The information has to come in from human beings, of course. And so they're coming in from all over the world. And so what they're finding now is that if you ask a question about Islam in the Middle East, you're going to get a different answer than you are if you're in Australia or if you're in the United States. Same with Christianity. So that right now, they don't have an answer for that. I think maybe the Antichrist will. But right now, it's a problem. Now, I don't think I have this. Yeah, I don't have this. At the World Economic Forum, this man is Spanish. He's from Spain. He spoke in Spanish. It was a fairly conservative speech, by the way. He was invited to speak. And when he spoke in Spanish. But then what happened is they took his speech and they ran it through AI, video and audio, put it in English, and they made his mouth move with the English terms. Now, I don't know how they're doing it. This is a real speech conducted by Javier Milei at the World Economic Forum. AI was used to translate Milei's post from Spanish to English and read in his voice. And I would say when you look at his lips, it looks like he's reading English. You can find the original and AI versions on YouTube. So this is what AI is doing to us and for us. Meet the first Spanish AI model. It is earning 10,000 euros a month. I think that's about $12,000 a month. The immigration problem. Do I need to go through that? You guys watching enough of that on Fox News? Governor Abbott has taken it to the court, and the Supreme Court has said one thing, and Abbott and Texas are saying we're not going to cave into the Biden administration, and they're saying that they own a plot of land that the government wants to come in and take over, and so they basically moved the Border Patrol away from that area, and they're fighting over that right now. Here's the number of states up to this point that said the governor said that they will back Texas. So this is interesting. It's not a civil war, but it's an interesting case. Here, listen to the latest, what Biden says, and in particular about Israel.
I will immediately restore and expand the Trump travel ban on entry from terror-plagued countries, and I will implement strong ideological screening for all immigrants. If you hate America, if you want to abolish Israel, if you sympathize with jihadists, then we don't want you in our country. We don't want you.
You can't argue with that. Trump ally drops a plan to declare him. So a Trump ally came out, David Bossie came out, he circulated a draft resolution to simply just announce him as the Republican nominee. Trump came out and said he's not going to do that. He wants it to run out. So I thought that was good of him, let it play out. Turkey finally ratifies Sweden's NATO membership after Turkey approved Sweden's joining NATO. President Biden sent a letter to the members of Congress urging them to approve the sale of F-16s to Turkey. Now, what I think is happening here is there's still one holdout, and that's Hungary. And it may be very well that Turkey and Hungary are in cahoots on this, that Turkey gets the F-16s through this deal, and maybe Turkey will give Hungary something through this deal as well. So this is not a done deal that Sweden's in. There's one more holdout. So it's very interesting that Turkey caved into this, especially given Russia's stance on this issue. Finland holds a presidential election on Sunday, that's today, in a new era marked by a country joining the Western Military Alliance, NATO last April in response to neighboring Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Sweden Prime Minister Kristersson has offered to meet his Hungarian counterpart in Brussels next week to clear up this whole thing. So the East against the West is continuing to divide. The UK has developed a laser weapon, a defensive weapon, much like Israel has been working on now. The United States, of course, has been working on this. We don't hear a lot about it. But the laser weapon, I want to remind you that the laser weapon is a lot more sophisticated. It's a lot more pinpointed. There's a lot less side damage. And it's so very, very, very inexpensive compared to shooting missiles. So nations are really getting on this. Let's talk about Russia just for a little bit. Russia stands to lose billions as Ukraine drones target key oil hubs. On January 18th, Ukraine launched a drone attack on St. Petersburg. That's a big deal. That's a ways from Ukraine, and it's down south. And I want to remind you that that's where Hitler wanted to make damage there and go out and take the oil terminals there in St. Petersburg as well. About 620 miles from the border there of Ukraine. Another Ukrainian drone attack near the city of St. Petersburg overnight on the 21st. A gas condensate plant in Port Ust-Luga caused a huge fire and halted fuel supplies. Ust-Luga is Russia's largest Baltic port, and Ukraine's security service claimed responsibility for that attack, the Kyiv Post newspaper reported. Should Ukraine successfully strike Russia's two major oil terminals in the Baltic now, in the Baltic Sea, Ust-Luga and Primorsk, it could halt the export of 1.5 million barrels of oil per day. So if you've seen Peter Zion here lately, he talked about this. And the concern now is that Ukraine will go after Russia's exports, their terminals, and their oil lines, their pipelines. And Russia is doing the same, of course, to Ukraine and has been for some time. The amount of oil shipped by the two oil terminals daily accounted for more than 40% of Moscow's oil. So it's a big deal. Total seaport crude oil on average from January to November. Russia could lose billions in oil exports should Ukraine successfully attack the country's major fuel terminals in the Baltic Sea. From the Hill, when talking about the United States and Russia concerning Alaska, the State Department on Monday brushed off reports of Russia President Vladimir Putin ordering his government to look into the nation's former real estate abroad, saying Alaska would be staying in American hands. Putin signed a new decree last week to allocate funds for research and registration of Russian property overseas, including that in former territories of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. Former Russian President Medvedev, who's a joker, he joked about the State Department's response later Monday, writing on Twitter, I still call it Twitter, according to a State Department representative, Russia is not getting back Alaska, which was sold in the U.S. to the U.S. in the 19th century. This is it then, and we've been waiting for it to be returned any day. Now war is unavoidable, with a laughing emoji attached. Now, there really is no evidence that Russia is going back after Alaska. But what does this say? That Russia is looking to go after the old Soviet territories. See, people are concerned that he doesn't stop at Ukraine, he keeps going to Poland. He keeps going toward the Baltic and toward the south, and then other places, so, Turkestan and some of these other places. So that should send a message to the world that Putin is not done with Ukraine. I do want to say this though. What does God want from Russia? I want to remind you of Ezekiel 38. He comes south. At some point, he is drawn south. A thought comes to his mind. I want to remind you of this thought, this context. The Assyrians in Isaiah chapter 7 and I think it's 8 in particular, it says he does not think so. The Assyrian didn't think about coming south. And who brought him south? God. And Pharaoh, the same thing, was drawn by the jaw south. That's the same words that are in Ezekiel 38 about Russia. And so at some point, something's going to come into the head of Putin, and he is drawn south, and he's not going to be able to avoid it. God is bringing him down there to destroy him. He's going to judge Israel with it, and they'll turn, but he's going to destroy them. Speaking of Russia and Ukraine, Reuters citing a Ukrainian source, Ukraine will continue to attack facilities that provide fuel to the Russian army. Now, where do you think this is? This is in Iraq. Pro-Ukrainian militias in Yurf al-Jarar area south of Baghdad, central Iraq, In addition to, according to the reports, the Al-Qaim crossing on Iraq-Syria border was attacked. So the Middle East continues to ramp up. And, you know, you can listen to the best theologians on the planet, the best ones, name them, and nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody. We can, you know, when we talk, like Pastor Joe and I and Gary and I, when we talk about, well, now remember what the Bible says. It also says that this is going to happen. And so that this is going to happen. You know, remember that there's 10 kings and there's this, all this stuff that happens in the West, and then it has to happen in the East. And then, you know, there's so many things that have to line up for, first of all, Jesus Christ to come, and secondly, for the Antichrist to come, that it's very, very difficult to put all those pieces together. And so to say we know the next thing is going to happen, we don't. What it looks like right now is that there's going to be a war in the Middle East. That's what it looks like right now. Now, would you consider that a Ezekiel 38 war? And that is not the Ezekiel 38 war. And I want to remind you that, and Pastor Joe and I have talked about this too, that Turkey, some say that Turkey leads that Ezekiel 38 war. I'm not of that persuasion, but I'm not 100% opposed to that idea. I don't think it's that. I think it's Russia. But I do want to remind you that he would have a reason to do that because he wants the old Ottoman Empire back, and he wants to be the caliphate of the world, and he would draw all those Islamic countries with him. And he's got a lot of power. He's got the number 4th power in NATO. The fourth biggest army in NATO right now. So he has the wherewithal to do it under the right circumstances. And right now he does not. He can't fight America in the circumstances that he has. America still has to be taken out of the way. The UK says Israel has different interpretations of the international law. Why do I put this here? Because the nations are now turning more and more on the Gaza war. Now, so far they're staying the course, and I'll show you something that happened here in South Africa here in a minute. But so right now, Israel has the go-ahead in general, but more and more nations and leaders are turning on Israel to say, you got to stop this massacre that's happening in Gaza. Now, here's the breaking news, and everybody knows it by now. Al-Tanf, a military base in Syria near the Syrian border with Jordan, where the Americans trained commandos were attacked by Iranian militia forces. 3 of our troops were killed. These are the first 3 killed during the Gaza war. There's several critical injuries, so there's some still not out of the woods, and then dozens others injured. I need an editor, please. The base has an airstrip from where American drones go out for intelligence activities in the area, and they do some other things. They receive convoys and all that kinds of stuff. This, I think there's 34 injured right now and 3 dead. Now, who do you put the blame on? Well, Iran they're the money changer, okay? And I believe Russia is a huge money changer in this as well. I really do believe. Turkey is helping them. I think Qatar is helping them, but Iran is the primary backer, okay? So, who's responsible for this? And we would say, well, it's Iran, because they could stop it, and they could have. They didn't stop Hamas, by the way. Hamas went on their own. They had a plan together, but Hamas looks like they went on their own and messed up Iran's plans. But who's responsible for this? We could put some blame on your president, our president. Okay, I'll claim him, my president. Why? I want to remind you what Mordecai Kadar said. He's probably the expert in the Middle East. He said, the Arabs only know strength. The Muslims only know strength. And there's a passage in the Quran that says if somebody's more powerful than you, I'm paraphrasing, then you can make peace with them until you are more powerful than them. Then you could make them submit, kill them, whatever it takes. So, the whole adage, walk softly, carry a big stick. You need a bigger stick than the next guy. And President Biden has let several attacks go without ever addressing them. And then he finally said, okay, we're going to attack some posts in Syria because we don't want to upset the Iraqis. Then he finally attacked the Iraqis, but this is after 100 attacks. Right? Now we're approaching, I think, 150 or 60 attacks. You see what's happening? Where if somebody, I want to remind you, if a neighbor comes over and he's got a baseball bat and he's breaking down your door, what are you going to do? Well, I hope you call 911 and they can get there. But I hope the man of the house will do something, seek the dog on him, do whatever. But you have to take care of business because that's what they know. That's the only thing they know. Being an old military guy, I wasn't in combat. I supported them. I believe that they need to take a big, big stick to Iran. Now, when you say that, what are you saying? You want to go to war with Iran? Because if you go to war with Iran, it is a big, big deal. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be all that stuff. So, this is one of those positions where you say, do you really want to be the commander-in-chief? Because you have to be very, very wise in this position here. The Iranians can call this off. And they have not. They've exacerbated the problem. I think Biden has made. Here's what Biden said. Today, America's heart is heavy. Last night, 3 U.S. Service members were killed, many wounded during an unmanned aerial drone attack on our forces stationed in northeast Jordan near the Syrian border. The base is actually on the Syrian side on the Jordanian border. It's kind of the entry is from Jordan. While we are still gathering the facts of the attack, we know it was carried out by radical Iranian-backed militants. Now, see what he says? And they've been saying this the whole time. They're Iranian-backed militants. So do you go after the militants or do you go after the backing? Right? You go after the big dog. The 3 American service members we lost were patriots in the highest sense, and their ultimate sacrifice will never be forgotten by our nation. Together we will keep the sacred obligation we bear to their families. We will strive to be worthy of their honor and valor. We will carry on their commitment to fight terrorism, and have no doubt we will hold all those responsible to account at a time and a manner of our choosing. And that's something that he continued to say. He used that over and over in a time and a manner of our choosing. And his manner of choosing has not been very good. Shalom from Israel. The mood in my country is tense. While the operation in Gaza is going exceedingly well, we know that the big war has yet to commence. He also says this, just so people around the world understand the way Israelis view Trump. During his time in office, Israel saw the move of the U.S. Embassy into Jerusalem, the recognition of the Golan Heights as Israeli territory, the Israeli settlements in our historical ancestral home of Judea and Samaria were not considered illegal. Iran was deterred, and arch terrorists like Soleimani were eliminated. America withdrew from the shameful nuclear deal with Iran following the unveiling of the archive that showed their true intentions by Netanyahu, if you will. And above all, a historic peace deal with 4 Arab countries were signed. Since Biden took office, all the bad guys are turning the Middle East into a world war zone. And we have to state the facts that is absolutely the case.
As it turned out, hate, anti-Semitism made its way to Sundance Film Festival, where people are calling for a ceasefire now, which is exactly what we had on October 6th before Hamas slaughtered all these Jews.
From the river to the sea, Palestine needs to be free from the occupation, which is illegal.
What's the river?
I forgot the river's name, but the sea is the Red Sea.
No.
So where is the river and the sea that everybody's chanting about?
I think it's the Black Sea and the river on the other side of Gaza.
Okay, so it's the Black Sea
Wrong.
and the river on the other side of Gaza.
The Palestinian genocide, it's just awful.
What about the hostages? Do you know about the hostages?
Unfortunately, I'm not that educated about that part.
The occupation is illegal. Even chocolate is not allowed. Wedding dresses are not allowed. It's been this way for over 15 years.
It's a genocide. It's not about Hamas. It's not.
How is it not about Hamas?
It's not about Hamas. Isn't even there.
Hamas isn't
Where?
there.
Hamas isn't where?
Even in Gaza,
Hamas is not in Gaza. The Jews are in Gaza.
the Jews.
Are there hostages in Gaza right now?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I got this from someone else.
Somebody gave it to you. Do you know what it means?
No.
Like, what are you demonstrating for or against?
Against the occupation of Palestine.
So support for the Black Sea to the other river to be liberated.
To be liberated from the occupation.
Does Israel have the right to exist at all?
I think the state of Israel should be dissolved.
So do you know what happened to women on October 7th?
I've heard things. I've also heard that they're not confirmed.
Not confirmed. The rape incidences are not confirmed?
Not sure.
What about the hostages?
I don't know.
Are there any hostages?
No.
So this is it, a demonstration at Sundance Film Festival calling for the genocide of Jews. As you can see, some of the people don't even know what it is that they're talking about. Our youth have been poisoned to such a level that blatant anti-Semitism is allowed. And it's just unfortunate. So we're all calling for freedom in the region. This is not the way to do it.
Now, think about this. There's people that believe that, and we kind of laugh, and we kind of snicker, and it's easy for some of us to do that. It's easier for me to do that, I'll say that. However, okay, so you've got that extreme. They don't even know, where Gaza is, where Hamas is, that people were really literally hurt. And then you've got us who believe the truth, all right? And we want to know the truth. But you got those people in between who really don't know and don't care. And so you've got this spectrum of people, beliefs, that really remember, I believe, what God is saying. I think He's making us understand that we need to know His Word, know what is going on, and believe the truth. Dr. Mordecai Kadar, remember, he's not a Christian, he's Jewish, but he really is good in the Middle East understanding Islam. He is the primary expert on Islam. Reports coming out of Iraq. In April, Iran gave their militias, their 50 militias groups in Iraq, notification to ready for all-out war with Israel, which would ultimately include the United States. The order was to come when Iran acquired a nuclear weapon. However, Hamas jumped ahead of Iranian plans. That was done to stop the Abraham Accords becoming such a blinder over the Palestinian idea. I think I cut that off. Anyway, the reason I put this, we've talked about this a little bit, but the reason I put this here is because we know about Hamas jumping the gun now, but what is Iran's plan going out? And at some point, do they step in? And that is a very, very deep concern, and who will step in with them when they do. Now let's go back to what I mentioned before, South Africa. South Africa took Israel to The Hague, the international courts, and they sued them to try to stop the war, to try to let the hostages go, get out of Gaza and all this kind of stuff. All kinds of lies. I mean, really, they weren't very sophisticated about it. Some of the stuff didn't happen. Israel are liars, all this kind of stuff. And the International Court for Justice in The Hague, Israel isn't required to stop the war. Hamas was demanded to release all hostages. Israel wasn't ordered to allow the population back to their homes. So the courts are, and again, this is what the West is doing. The West is supporting Israel, but only up to an extent right now. And we're going to get into the military arms that are still going into Israel and all of that stuff. But the West is still, where's this at? Pretty significant bombing. This is in Yemen. This is the United States and the UK in Yemen. And so it is becoming a very, very sophisticated war and Middle East wide right now, and the concerns that it will continue to ramp up. There's a picture of a game that was made for the children of Gaza, and that they were to wipe out Jews and kill Jews. That's the idea there. Sonia, do me a favor and go to my chair, and down on the floor is a white extension cord, okay, please. And I don't think I have one here. I'd appreciate it. 24 soldiers die on the deadliest day for Israeli forces in Gaza. So the deadliest day for Israeli forces in Gaza happened a couple days ago, and the deadliest day for American soldiers just happened yesterday. So this continues to ramp up. It's not good. Hamas forces fired a rocket-propelled grenade. And anyway, 21 were killed. It says 19 here. I think 21 or 24 were killed and 15 others injured. The Israelis want to put a 1 kilometer deep buffer into Gaza. So this is not quite a mile. This is about 2/3 of a mile. And they want a very significant buffer now along Gaza. Scotland, the Netherlands, Germany, Finland joined Italy, the UK, Canada, Australia, and the US in freezing its support of UNRWA funds, thank you very much, dues to its members participating in the October 7th massacre. Now, this is very significant because what did Trump do? He stopped all those funds, and then Biden started them again.
Do you know what UNRWA is?
Yeah, it's the UN
United Nations Relief
Agency for the people in Gaza. Yeah.
So it's United Nations relief workers.
Right.
Were helping to do the massacre.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
So they're supposed to be there bringing relief, but instead they're out there murdering Jewish people. That's the United Nations for you.
That's why I love having Pastor Joe Gary around. Appreciate that. Yeah. So now they're backtracking to where President Trump was at one point, because they knew this stuff was happening. The world knows this kind of stuff's happening, but not until it's out in front of you do they take steps. On the other side, the big arms deal between the U.S. and Israel. The deal delivers F-35s, F-16s, F-15s, Apache helicopters. There's the funds so far that UNRWA is losing. It's about, looks like about $1.5 million right now. There's another report on Israeli, United States arms, and we're talking about aircraft going to Israel. However, there's a report that the small arms the United States small arms, there's no more of those going in to the United States. The United States is saying no more rifles, no more small ammunition into Gaza, because that's what's actually killing people. So we'll follow up on that. But so Biden he's waffling between two opinions is what he's doing. Oil tanker with 22 Indians. So here's the latest in the Houthi attack. The Indians on board here from India. The threat of the Houthis hurts Egypt badly. They've dropped their revenues 44% from last year. That's huge. Houthi delegation met with the Russian deputy. So you see what's going on there? Houthis and the Russians. And China asked Iran to urge the Houthis to reduce escalation. So China wants to help. They haven't been able to. The United States is in the way again. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is flying to Thailand to discuss the Houthi attacks on the Red Sea shipping with China, so that they can get China to talk to the Houthis, to talk to Iran. You see this mess? You go direct. I want to remind you what Trump did. He went to a leader and he said, I know where you live. And so stop this right now. The Pentagon, our forces destroyed more than 25 missile launches. That's the launch sites in Yemen. That's quite a few. And the Pentagon estimates the U.S. military buildup in the Middle East since Hamas' October 7th attacks on Israel has cost $1.6 billion. So that's on top of everything else that was already there. The Biden administration is planning to pull forces out of Syria. Now, I'm putting this on there because this has not been verified. You can see that this was 2 days ago. I haven't seen any other reports on this, but I'm putting this up there to say, okay, here's the first of this report that this is what he wanted to do 2 years ago. And we're going to follow it to see exactly what Biden is going to do. But we know what God's going to do, and he's not going to let people off easily. So because of that attack on the Indian vessel, India's in on this, they sent warships to the Arabian Sea there. And the axis of evil in the Middle East. Watch what President Raisi in the middle, this is the president of Iran, and he says to Erdogan, Zionism, Inshallah, God willing, the Zionist regime will disappear. So that's, remember, now this is the Sunnis and the Shia who don't like each other, but because they hate Israel, because they hate the United States, they are lining up together against us. Erdogan called for an immediate ceasefire and backed legal steps for Israel to be tried for genocide. This is fairly laughable. You remember what Turkey did to the Armenians in World War II. Or was one, yeah, thank you. He earlier compared Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with Germany's wartime dictator Adolf Hitler, who oversaw the murder of some 6 million Jews and others he didn't like. Erdogan said to his friend Raisi, the Sunni said to the Shia, discussed in Ankara this week, ending Israel's inhumane attacks on the Gaza Strip and the need for the fair and lasting peace in the region. However, we agreed on the importance of refraining from steps. Watch, this is laughable. We agreed on the importance of refraining from steps that will further threaten the security and stability of our region. So Erdogan is either very, very ignorant, which we don't think he is, or he's culpable. And he's talking to this man in Iran who has the thumb on everything that's happening. And he's in agreement with everything that's happening in the Middle East. The crisis with Turkey worsens. Turkey Airlines cancels all its flights to Israel, and that's a very significant group of planes there. Now, I read an article in Israel's 365, and I'm going to take out excerpts of it, and I apologize that you wouldn't want me to read the whole thing anyway. But here's what he's doing here. He's saying this is what God wants, this is what God told Israel to do, and this is what Israel didn't do, and this is what Israel is doing. And so this is the problem. So he mentions 3 sins, and the third sin of Israel was committed in 2011 when Prime Minister Netanyahu, supported by 26 government ministers, freed thousands of the murderous Hamas terrorists in exchange for one man, Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier abducted by Hamas. Israel released 1,207 terrorists in exchange for Shalit, and an exorbitant price that only encouraged Hamas to kidnap more Israelis. For this reason, the sage rule that we must not ransom captives for more than their value for the good order of the world. That's the Babylonian Talmud. Today we are paying the price for this mistake. Now that's his take, okay? It's not mine, it's his take. But here's what he says. Once again, the Bible is clear. Israel must resettle the Gaza Strip, for it is part of God's promised land as delineated in the book of Joshua. Gaza with her towns and her villages to the river of Egypt. In 2005, the Israeli government ignored God's command, arrogantly uprooting all the Jewish settlements in Gaza, and there's videos of that out there, very sad. The result, 18 years of nonstop terrorism and rocket attacks, followed by the horrific slaughter of October 7th, was disastrous. Will Israel make the same mistake again today? On January 10th, Netanyahu said, I want to make a few points absolutely clear. Israel has no intention of permanently occupying Gaza or displacing its civilian population. A few weeks earlier, when asked about the possibility of reestablishing Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip, he said, it is not a realistic view. And to be frank with you, it probably isn't a realistic view. He would go against every government on the planet, pretty much. And it would be very, very difficult to be there. But what they did was they gave up ground. And now they're in a position that they made. From his public statements, it seems that Bibi has every intention of repeating the sin of Gaza in disengagement. In the name of realism, he is dismissing the will of God. But it is anything too difficult for God, who measured the sea with his fistfuls and drafted the sky with a ruler, who placed in a measure all the dust of the earth, weighed mountains on a scale, and hills on a balance. So what would it be if the Israeli government said, we're going to read this set of verses to the whole nation, then we're going to make a decision based on God's word? What would God do? And then, of course, they need their Messiah. We know they need to turn to their Messiah. But they're in a very, very difficult place, and without making statements and decisions for God based on his word, they're going to continue to pay the price. God understood how difficult it would be for leaders of Israel to remain faithful to his commands. For this reason, he commanded every king of Israel to write 2 Torah scrolls for himself. Wherever he travels, an Israeli king must carry a Torah scroll with him to remember that his mission is to fulfill God's will and not his own. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of his Torah and these statutes, to perform them, so that he will not turn away from the commandment, either to the right or to the left, in order that he may prolong his days in the kingdom, he and his sons among Israel. Only a king willing to submit his own will to that of God will retain the right to rule God's people. And in the long run, that is the case. This is Prime Minister Netanyahu's great test. Despite heavy pressure from the United States and the international community, he must stand strong and reject their demands that Israel once again abandon the Gaza Strip. This is no simple task. And so we, the people of Israel, and all those who care for God's people, must pray that God will give the Prime Minister and his cabinet the wisdom and faith to choose correctly. Our Father, our King, bless the nation of Israel, its leaders and ministers, and guide them in the ways of wisdom, valor, and faith. We believe with complete faith that the people of Israel will return to Gaza. God's nation will be sovereign over all of Judea and Samaria and every inch of the promised land. The only question is when and who will merit to lead them. And that will probably be Jesus Christ. Let's finish here. Israel, remember, is pregnant. The world, did you know, is pregnant as well? Well, talk about Israel is pregnant. Therefore, he shall give them up until the time when she who is in labor has given birth. Then the rest of his brothers shall return to the people of Israel. Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, and his wife, Michal, came to visit a Jewish Orthodox school for boys, yeshiva, that has lost 8 of its alumni killed in the war so far. The visit was concluded with everyone singing these lyrics: I believe in the coming of the Messiah, and even if he tarries, I'll wait for him until he will come. Now, I've shown probably 3 or 4 of these now, where the military, some of the military is singing these, the rabbis are singing these, the people are calling out for the Messiah more and more. And remember, it is the pain of being in birth that will cause them to cry out. Global Jews seek home in Israel. Is the nation ready? We celebrate the strengthening of the global Zionist movement. An important question arises: will there be enough apartments in Israel to accommodate this influx of immigrants. I'm not going to continue to read this, but they are coming home. The Ministry of Aliyah, which means go up, report states after a significant decrease in the number of immigrants to Israel in 2023, mainly due to the war in Ukraine, approximately 62.5 thousand new immigrants arrived in Israel in 2022, with the majority coming from Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. It highlights the notable growth in new immigration cases since the outbreak of the war, including a significant increase in applications from France and North America, with approximately 500% and 120% respective rises in the number of opened immigration cases. This is since the beginning of the Gaza war, from the beginning of the war with Hamas. All right? So anyway, that's what's happening. And finally, we'll finish with this lovely picture. This was a dream of Jeannie and Guy's. They thought we would get out here as a church and put this picture together, and we'll get it to your mirror. We talked to the church board today, and the church is going to give to Connect. So they've agreed with that, and we'll talk more about that as we go. We as a group want to give to Connect. I want to suggest to you to be on Telegram. The best news coming out of the Middle East is on Connect with Amir Safadi. He has ends that most people don't have. He's a Jewish major. An Israeli major, and prior governor, of course, in Jericho. And we get a lot of news from him. And he is preaching a very, very good gospel. And so we want to support him on his way. Let's just pray. Lord, we thank you for your grace and your mercy, Lord God, and we love you so very much. We pray for courage to stand for the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is mentioned 3 times in just a half book of Mark chapter 1, where you came to proclaim the gospel in a very dark time and a very dark place. And that's still the mission today. As our time winds down here on earth, Lord God, we need to be courageous and see the times that are coming and understand your ways. We love the opportunity and we thank you for it. We wait to see your face in Jesus' precious name. Amen.